You would start the recording. Fantastic. Thank you so much to Lauren and to Lois at ACRL. This is the ACRL instruction section, membership committees, orientation to instruction section. We are delighted to have you here. This session will be recorded today so that you or anyone else can watch it afterwards. And we are glad that you're here. So let's do a quick round of introductions. I will start with myself and then turn it over to the chair. So I am Lisa Martin. I'm chair of the instruction section membership committee, the committee responsible for this orientation today. And let me turn it over to the chair of the section.
Still muted. Hi, folks. I'm Nika Foss, and I'm the instruction section chair. Veronica?
Hi, I'm Veronica Ariana Douglas, and I am the instruction section vice chair.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jane Hammonds. I am a member of the instruction section and was on the subcommittee that organized this orientation.
Hello, everyone. I am Beth Black. I am a member of the subcommittee organizing the orientation, and I'll be the committee member kind of in the back helping with the chat. Happy you're here.
I am Alex Mitchell. I'm also a membership or on the membership committee and part of the orientation subcommittee.
Fantastic. Thanks everyone for introductions. And now that you know who we are and a little bit about our backgrounds and roles within instruction section, here is the agenda for today. So as mentioned earlier in the chat, we don't necessarily anticipate that the presentation portion will take much more than about 30 minutes, but we wanted to allow a generous amount of time for questions and answers. So on the agenda for the actual presentation part is a little bit about who the section is and what the section does, some resources that we provide to members, the structure of the section, and then how you might get involved, particularly given the February 12th deadline for the ACRL volunteer form. All right, I'll hand it over from there.
Hello, everyone. Again, in this section, we wanted to talk a little bit about what it is that instruction section actually does. So that you can see our charge is to enhance the ability of academic and research librarians to advance learning, teaching, and research with respect to information literacy. So what does that actually mean for the kinds of things that we do and how we provide support to you as a librarian? So we would like to do a quick poll here. So the poll is going to ask you whether or not you've used certain resources that the instruction section manages. So Lauren, all right, there we go. The poll is popped up and we'll give everyone a little bit of time to respond to that poll. So hopefully most folks have had a chance to respond. We'll give it another 10 seconds or so and let folks respond, and then we'll share the results of that poll. And we did have one person in the chat comment that the response was none of the above, and that's okay as well. We should have added that as an option. Apologies for that. So great. So hopefully you all should be able to see the poll results. And you can see that some of you have used the Primo website to look up instruction materials. Some of you have used the ACRL framework information literacy sandbox to find information on teaching the framework. We have some folks that are familiar with the featured librarian teaching guides, some folks that have used the instructional technologies, tips and trends, and a handful of folks that have also used the information literacy and the disciplines guides. Right, so thank you for sharing that poll. So those are just a few, sorry, if you go back 1 second real quick, Alex. Those are just a few of the examples of the types of resources that instruction section manages. And I did want to take a minute just to mention at this point that some of you may be aware that there are some issues currently with the instruction section website. So that unfortunately, some of these resources are not currently available. You can definitely still access the framework sandbox, but unfortunately, a few of the other resources are not available. We do have a temporary instruction section website, and I think the link for that will be added into the chat. And yeah, Beth just added that in there. Thank you, Beth. But we hope that that all of these resources will again be available soon. Unfortunately, we can't give you a specific date in which the website is going to be functional again. But we did want to mention these as things that when things are working correctly, the instruction section manages. Next slide, please. So as you can see from those examples, our work is focused in several different areas. So pedagogy, providing support for librarians who are doing instruction, such as with the Primo website or the Sandbox, Framework Sandbox. We provide guidance on using technology in instruction with the tips and trends. We provide professional development support, such as through a mentoring program. And then we also do engage with the higher education environment. For example, last June, the instruction section submitted a statement condemning the racial injustice and violence that was going on at that time. So those are the sort of the broad areas in which we work. Instruction section is the second largest section in the ACRL behind the university library section. And we really do want to highlight that our members come from a variety of different types of institutions, from community colleges, small private colleges, to very large research institutions. Apologies for my cat. So, you know, it really is a variety of different types of institutions that folks who are in this section are working at. And they also have a variety of different types of roles. So as you can see, some of the examples reference an instruction librarian, student success librarian, undergraduate engagement librarian, coordinator of outreach and business librarian. So we really are open to folks in a large range at institutions and positions. So there's not just one specific role that you need to be in to think that instruction section is for you. One of the things that we wanted to do was to highlight a few of the folks that are involved in the instruction section and let them tell you what they get out of being involved in the instruction section. So we're going to pass it back over to Lisa, who is going to do our first member profile.
Sure. Thank you so much, Jane. So I am currently the coordinator of outreach and a business librarian at the University of Houston. As of March 1st, I will be the Assistant Program Director for Instruction Services at UC San Diego Libraries. So my current role in instruction section is I'm chair of membership, but I have been active on a variety of committees over about an 8-year stretch. And I want to say that I particularly found instruction section committees valuable because there's a project and a task and some really strong engagement. And I found that that varies. You know, not every section, not every division has that strong understanding of what a project might be for an individual committee, but that is something that I really value from my time in instruction section. So I volunteered at the time because I was in North Dakota, which is a little geographically isolated, and I really wanted to grow my network of instruction colleagues. So I found it incredibly valuable to volunteer And right from the beginning, I was on, I think, management and leadership. I can't even remember the first committee I started with. Eventually ended up chairing management and leadership, have been on information literacy and the disciplines, membership. I was on nominating for the year that nominated Veronica. Just a wide variety of both externally, public facing things like discussion groups, and internal to the section things like nominating. And I find value in both that external focus and the internal focus. And I really value the colleagues that I've met, the network that I've been able to grow, and the different projects that I've been able to point to and learn and grow from.
All right, for this section, we have a variety of resources that we're going to talk about. So resources to stay up to date. So there are a few resources to help you stay updated with what's going on with IS and with instruction. So these include the IS blog, newsletter, and ALA Connect. The newsletter comes out twice a year to your inbox and features articles, trends, and updates from the instruction section. The blog features a teaching librarian and other information, and you can find the discussion pages on ALA Connect. So we talked about ALA Connect discussion pages, but other ways you can also engage. You've got the ILI listserv. It's full of great questions and information. I know I am subscribed to that and use it frequently. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter, where there are links to webinars, podcast articles, and information about what's going on in the instruction section. And then we have a variety of resources for professional support. So we broke this down into 3 categories. So for pedagogy, I know we mentioned Primo earlier. So that is the peer-reviewed instructional materials online database. It contains peer-reviewed information literacy instructional materials. IL and the disciplines gathers and promotes information literacy standards and curricula developed by accrediting agencies, professional associations, and institutions of higher education. This guide is published within the ACRL website. So for technology, there's 5 things you should read about, which is published once a year on a specific topic and highlights 5 things in that area. So for example, some past topics have been universal design for learning or open educational resources. And then we also host a variety of webinars throughout the year. And then I will hand this over to talk about structure.
Okay, thank you. Like many large organizations, the instruction section is a part of a larger structure within ACRL and subsequently the American Library Association. So let's take a look at that chart. Starting from the left in the orange, we have ALA. Within ALA, the parent company, the parent organization is the Association of College and Research Libraries, and that is one of 11 divisions within ACRL. ACRL represents colleges and university libraries. ACRL is the largest division of the American Library Association, which also includes roundtables, chapters, and other affiliates. And they're shown here in pink. ALA has about 10,000 of its members are members of ACRL. So that's about roughly 12,000 members of ALA are ACRL members. Within ACRL, you'll find chapters, sections, interest groups, committees, and task forces. The instruction section is one of the 15 sections within ACRL, shown here in green. The membership of the instruction section is around 3,800. And let's actually transition to the next slide and we'll talk about the structure of the instruction section. So this is sort of starting at the bottom. That begins with membership and these 19 standing committees. So these committees are you all volunteering to do this work. So the bottom of the structure is membership and these standing 19 committees. Of these committees, Some of the major name changes is inclusive pedagogy. It was formerly known as Instruction for Diverse Populations, and virtual engagement, it was formerly known as discussion group steering. So the names and the charges of many of these committees have grown and changed as the needs of the instruction section membership has grown and changed. The committees are not static, but the changes that are made are meaningful and intentional and based on membership feedback. All committees are deeply involved with different aspects of teaching, information literacy, and professional development for librarians. Currently, we do not have any special short-term task forces. So within each of these committees, let's talk about the sort of oversight of these 19 standing committees. So there is this umbrella organization called Advisory Council, and I'm going to sort of work my way back up to Advisory Council. So each of the 19 committees has both a chair and a vice chair. And each of these 19 committees has a liaison. So the liaison works with the chairs and vice chairs. And those liaisons are the members of the executive committee. More on that in a bit. All of these folks, these 38 chairs and vice chairs, and the executive members are, and as well as ex officio members like the committee listserv administrator, web administrator, newsletter editors, and the director of LOAX, they make up this umbrella organization called Advisory Council. So this group provides input into how the instruction section navigates its work. Okay, so I mentioned executives, so let's talk about them. Next slide, please. Thank you. So there are 10 members that make up the executive committee. The current chair, which is me, the vice chair, which is Veronica, and you'll be speaking with her in a bit, and the past chair, which is Susanna. Also the archivist and secretary and 4 members at large who are elected into these positions every year, and their appointments are staggered. So there are 9 elected positions, 4 members at large, a vice chair and secretary. So you can see as chair, I completed my vice chair work last year, and next year I will be past chair. And the same applies for the secretary. Our current secretary, Veronica, will be the archivist next year. So the membership of the executive committee changes every year, and Veronica will speak to more about volunteering, but I do want to encourage folks to consider running for one of these elected leadership positions, especially if you've been involved in the instruction section for a while. This is a really great opportunity to really lead. Finally, we are living and working through a pandemic, and it's important that we acknowledge the difficulties we've all been managing this past year. Because things have been challenging, we are particularly thankful that we have so many volunteers who continue to serve in the instruction section. Veronica?
Okay, so Nikat did a really great job of kind of giving you a sense of where IS fits in within ACRL, within ALA, and also kind of what our executive committee does overall. So I am briefly going to talk about the responsibilities of section officers outside of secretary and archivist. So the 3 of us, Nikat as chair, myself as vice chair, and then Susanna as past chair, really work together to try and move the section forward every year. So we sort of set an agenda, maybe pick an area that we really want to focus on, and offer advice and direction to the folks on exec, as well as the people on the different instruction section committees. So Nikat, lucky her, schedules and runs all of our meetings. She coordinates directly with ACRL. Yes, I know, laughing, crying. And really is our go-to with ACRL board, and is responsible for just kind of keeping us all organized and moving instruction section forward wherever it is that we choose to go in that particular year. So she was previously vice chair, which is my position now. And my big responsibility every year, in addition to like participating in the governance of the section is to make committee appointments every, or for this particular year, not every year, just this year. So Nikat and I just had a great meeting about that. We talk frequently about different issues within the committee and within the section. And then we also work with our past chair, Susanna, and she just has, as mentioned here, right, a wealth of experience, having gone through both vice chair and chair position. She has a lot of really, really helpful suggestions on timing, on process. There's a lot of that like kind of section knowledge that gets retained, which is why our past chair stays so involved in the section once they're done with their chairship. She is the liaison to the Student Learning and Information Literacy Committee, which is an ACRL level committee. And she also chairs the Dudley Award for the Instruction Librarian of the Year Award. Next slide, please. So the thing I really want to emphasize today, if you are current members and are looking to change your committee, if you're just thinking about becoming involved with instruction section, our call for volunteers is open until February 12th. There's a link on the slide and a link was just placed in the chat box as well. And I highly encourage you to get your application in by that February 12th deadline. So this year, like I said, I'll be the one making those appointments. And I have been involved with instruction section. I was just checking my CV before this since 2008. And I started off on the mentoring program committee and then did a whole bunch of other work within the section. I think it's similar to what Lisa said. I joined because I wanted to have a bigger community of colleagues who were doing reference and instruction. And I've stuck with the section ever since. So who knows, you might volunteer and then find yourself on exec at some point. So just to kind of demystify that volunteer process a little bit, I end up with a giant spreadsheet of volunteers. So all of the information that you are submitting on that volunteer form, someone is reading it and that someone is me. So put some thought right into what you're doing. Let me know why you want to be a part of the committees that you're volunteering for. There are great people all over the place. So let me know kind of what your experience has contributed to you wanting to become a member of instruction section and how that would make you a great member of a particular committee. You don't need to like agonize over it, but just let me know what's on your mind and why you want to be a part of our section. I would recommend that when you volunteer, it can be really tempting to like, and this is something I did when I was first trying to sign up. It can be really tempting to just check all of the boxes and say, I'd be happy on any of these committees. So just put me where you need me, which I think is a very logical, right, response. But I would encourage you to pick a handful, maybe 2 to 4 committees that you feel really strongly about in terms of wanting to join, and stick with those. And that helps me get a better sense of where to place you within the section structure and kind of where you would be the best fit. And as Lisa just noted in the chat box, yes, please do make note of the character limit. 500 characters go quickly. So again, you don't need to obsess over what you're writing, just put a little thought into what you're putting in there. Some of the benefits of volunteering are being able to network with colleagues from other libraries, which Lisa and I both mentioned. You're definitely contributing to the profession. I was just talking to a colleague about this before this membership orientation, but one thing I really like and appreciate about instruction section is that the committees do work and they're working on a project, right? If you are a member of the mentorship program committee, You are making mentorship matches and facilitating those connections. Inclusive pedagogy is working on teaching resources and professional development. Virtual engagement is working on bringing us together as a section. We're online right now and we're virtual now, but IS is a completely virtual section regardless of whether or not we have a pandemic. So we are online at all times and we don't meet in person at ALA or Midwinter, which is really great for those of us with limited travel budgets. I found that I've been able to gain a lot of leadership experience within instruction section, and that's experience that you can then kind of take back to your workplace. It really helps you see a project through until the end and work with all different kinds of people. You learn about the section, you learn about ACRL, and if you are at an organization that has tenure or some kind of continuing appointment or promotion process, volunteering with instruction section can help you meet whatever kinds of service requirements you have for your job. So there's lots of great stuff that you can get out of volunteering for instruction section. And I will say that one of my priorities this year with appointments, which I should have mentioned when I was talking about how volunteers are chosen, is that we're really trying to diversify the section. So lots of encouragement for folks who identify as Black, Indigenous, or persons of color to apply to the section. We have so many new professionals coming into this field, and I really want to take that into account as I'm making committee appointments, just bringing in new voices to the section, because that's what makes our section stronger. Next slide, there we go, it's back to Alex.
So I am the second member profile. So I am a first-year experienced librarian at Texas A&M University. So my role in IS is I am on the membership committee. This year I'm on the orientation subcommittee, and this was the first committee that I ever volunteered for. So I kind of finally reached a point where I was comfortable with my job and figuring out what my various job responsibilities were. So I really wanted to learn more about, what's going on in other libraries and, what's going on in a different way and as a way to contribute to the profession. I've really enjoyed working with librarians all over the country. And I really do like getting to work on different projects and learning more about IS in the process. Sometimes it's nice to step outside of my immediate bubble and, work on these different kind of projects with all of these committee members. And I will pass it back over.
I was muted. So we have a number of upcoming events in instruction section. This is one of only many that we could highlight. We strongly encourage y'all to look at upcoming events on ALA Connect for instruction section, the ILI Listserv, etc. But we do have one event that, as I said, we'll highlight in particular. That is the webinar for the Framework for Information Literacy Sandbox. So if you're not sure what the sandbox is or what it does, if you're interested but want to hear more, on Tuesday, April 27th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 30-minute webinar, and then some breakout rooms to actually get people uploading content into the sandbox. Registration is required, and you can find out more information. We're happy to put that into the chat or to answer questions you might have. But again, we just want to encourage you. There's a really great balance between helpful number of events and not an overwhelming number of events that instruction section puts on. And you can find those through our Connect or the ILIL listserv. So this is where we start to take questions. And I know we've seen a couple in chat already. If you are here with us live and not watching the recording, feel free to put your questions into chat. We have a number of experts and we're happy to respond. If you're watching the recording or if you're not comfortable asking questions live, We really strongly encourage you to reach out to us with questions at any time. On the screen, you will find my email as chair of membership, but you've also got Nikat's email as chair of the section and Veronica's as vice chair and that person who's doing the appointments as mentioned. So any last comments from anyone before we look at questions? Okay, getting head shakes, which is perfect. And as mentioned earlier, y'all do have perfect right to unmute yourself, or you can put a question in chat as your accessibility needs and preferences are.
The question is it true that we receive more volunteers than openings? It depends on the year. Sometimes that is true, and sometimes there are difficulties finding people to fit specific appointments because people have either just selected one or two committees that they want to be involved in and not the other, not a more, which doesn't give us more options. Next question.
There's a question from Aaron Durham. Do the responsibilities of the IS chair, vice chair, and past chair stay with those positions regardless of who is currently serving? Yes. IS, IS has a very intentional structure. And so, you know, you're elected as vice chair, you move into chair and then into past chair. And those responsibilities are associated with the position, not the person.
It's also a good opportunity to practice leadership. Any other questions? You can resubmit and we'll take the most recent one, I believe.
And that was in response to a question from a person who applied but isn't sure what they submitted, which, like, been there, I've done that, and now would like to revise. So you can revise and submit a new application. Wait, I'm sorry, Nikat, did you say revise or just submit a completely new one?
Or you would probably have, actually, I don't know how it works. I'm trying to remember. I think it's the same form. So you would just have to resubmit a new form and maybe toss in a date in there somewhere so we can figure out which one to use. Okay, thank you. Something else to keep in mind, if your membership expires this month, so the database that Veronica's digging through is a snapshot in time. So if your membership expires, it'll tell us that we can't appoint that individual because your membership is expired. So if you're renewing in February, do so if you want to continue with working with the instruction section.
We had a question higher up in the chat about the difference between the archivist and the secretary.
The role of secretary is to take minutes during the executive committee meetings and to be a liaison to one or two of the standing committees. And then once that position concludes after their first year, their second year is the role of archivist, which is to archive materials that would be used that have historical provenance to the section, and to again be a liaison to one or two standing committees. Next question.
Did you see the one about the mentoring committee?
Okay. Maybe this.
Oh yeah, so there's a person who mentioned, Melissa mentioned that they know about website issues and COVID, but are there plans for the mentoring program to resume? I wasn't aware that it had paused.
Ditto. We can look into it. If you'll
We'll look
send us your
into it.
email address, or if you'll email me with your question, I will respond to you.
Yep.
What's our next question?
There's also a question in the chat from Alyssa about, I love hearing how projects and tasks guide service work. Can you highlight examples of current projects of some of the standing committees? Which is, there's a lot going on, but I don't know, Veronica or Nikata, do you have specific ones?
Yes. so this year I'm liaison to the Primo committee. So that's the peer-reviewed instructional materials, and I don't ask me what the O is for. But it's a great database of kind of online learning objects and materials. And so that committee is super active every year in reviewing submissions. And then once they select the kind of featured teaching resource for the month, they do a really nice interview with the creators of that learning object, and then post those on a website. And I should say the issues with the website are all as a result of this hacking that happened with various ALA websites over the summer. So it's not unique to instruction section. And it's just taking a while to get all of that resolved. But that's one example. Inclusive pedagogy group will put together, I think it was like 4 things about inclusive pedagogy. And so they'll put together resources for teaching librarians. Management and leadership did a series of webinars last year. I think right now the section is really focused on professional development for teaching librarians, regardless of whether or not you're an instruction section member, which I think is really nice. I don't know if other folks in membership, or if Nikat, if you wanted to add anything to that.
I'm liaison to most of the awards committees, so I can't speak to how they're doing other than awards have been, award applications or individuals have been selected. And that news will come out, I think, around the time ACRL is in conference. Are there others here who want to talk about their work in instruction section? If not, I'm sure we have more questions.
I can mention, mentioned the Framework Sandbox event that's coming up. This is one of the things we're working on to try to encourage more folks to submit their instructional materials to the Framework Sandbox. And so part of that event will be a time when folks who do have things that they want to upload, we can work, go through the process together so that we can grow that resource.
Thank you.
So there is a question in the chat that I want to make sure that we got to, asking, are there particular committees that y'all might recommend first-time volunteers volunteer for?
It depends on your interests, but there's also the position of secretary. If you're really new to the instruction section, it's a great opportunity to play the role of secretary and to learn, observe, and what of the work of the committee. And informally within appointment systems, if you are a secretary, you are reappointed as a 2-year member to that committee after you've concluded your secretary duties. So it becomes almost a 3-year commitment, and it's your choice to continue as a member in that committee or try a different committee.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that there's a particular committee that I'd recommend. It's really funny hearing everyone's member profiles and how we all started on different committees as, you know, new librarians, new professionals, new to instruction section. So I would just agree that based on whatever you're interested in, I would apply to that. I think all of the committees are fairly welcoming. Not fairly, we are welcoming to all new professionals and first-time volunteers. So just pick what most interests you.
Did we get through all of them? All right. Oh, secretary to a committee, one of the 19 committees, not secretary to the executive committee. Sorry. Thank you for helping me clarify that.
Looks like there might be a question or two where we're just waiting for clarification. So just want to give that space in case there's something that someone wants to mention and needs a moment to think.
Okay. While we wait, I think I started out in the instruction section in, I think it was 2003, instruction for diverse populations or inclusive pedagogy. And I've been involved pretty consistently off and on since then. Does anyone know how to add a section to your ALA profile? Okay, that one's probably over my head.
I feel like this came up recently on another section that I am involved in, and I think you actually have to go into your renewal portion of your membership. So actually going into your account and then clicking renew or join. And then I think you add a section and then it charges you for that, or it doesn't charge you as appropriate.
I think you can get like 2
Yeah.
section memberships under ACRL at no additional charge.
Note that we are not 100% experts on this part. So if you have questions and if that doesn't work, you can always email us and we will get you to the person who can answer that question if that answer is incorrect.
Oh, hi, Melissa. Yeah, it was your question that you never saw an application come out for the mentoring program for 2020, 2021. We'll look into it. I feel like that's something that maybe just like got lost in our COVID shuffle this year. So we will for sure check into that.
Any other questions that folks might have?
Well, I do want to thank you, Lisa, Jane, Beth, Alex, and Rosalind for putting together this really great program. I really, I learned something new, so thank you.
Thanks
Yeah,
to
thank
you.
you all.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Ron. We appreciate your time and we appreciate attendees' time. The recording will be posted to the ACRL YouTube, and attendees who registered should also receive a direct link. So please feel free to follow up as you have questions. We would love to hear from you. Thank you.
And don't hesitate to email Lisa, email me, email Nikat. We genuinely want you to contact us if you have questions.
Yes.